Welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddard. Excited today to bring you somebody from paradise, Hal Wilkerson. He's an agent in Hawaii, just outside of Oahu, or on the island of Oahu. Comes from a deep, deep background of experience in corporate sales. From him, we're going to be extracting key lessons that maybe you wouldn't learn from the real estate industry. He also has a background as a naval aviator. He's going to share with us some lessons that, again, are not common in real estate, but I think every real estate agent needs to learn these things from Hal. Hal, thank you for coming on the show today.
Absolutely, Justin. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So Hal and I got connected. He'd seen a podcast that I'd done. He reached out. We spent some good time together and really kind of made a connection. And he's someone who I think all of us can learn from. Hal, thanks for, again, for kind of being who you are and bringing, I think, another generation of real estate agents into the industry that are helping us level up, right? Sometimes people get into the industry because they feel like, oh, this is going to be easy money. I watch HGTV. I'm going to be showing homes. I feel like you come into the industry eyes open. I feel like you're coming in like looking to level up the experience that clients can have. Is that a fair assessment there? That it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. You're going to be able to bring some value to the industry.
You know, absolutely. That's my feeling is that, as you were talking, I'm sort of imagining sort of the ideal audience member that may be looking at this. And I think I most definitely would identify with people that are sort of have gone through what this perhaps last year has brought and sort of caused a lot of people to sort of ask themselves really, what is it that I really want out of life? And so that's sort of what I did, which is sort of what got me here. And I'm bringing my skill set that I tapped into and used as in corporate sales for the last 10 years in this industry. And so, that's really what I feel like some value that I could add. So, yeah.
That's good, man. I think, again, oftentimes we tend to be so close to the problem. We all learn from the same people. And so we don't really have an outsider's perspective. And I love it when really bright people who have succeeded at high levels in other facets of life and business come into the industry, right? Some see it as a threat. I don't. I see it as an opportunity to learn from somebody like you, right? You sold medical device at a really high level for the last 10 years, right? We're a naval aviator before that, as I mentioned. What are some of the lessons that you feel like you learned? Let's start with naval aviator. I think that's a fascinating thing, right? So what did you fly? And what are some key principles that you feel like from that time and period in your life are going to benefit you as a real estate agent?
So I would say discipline is probably the biggest one from my military days. To answer your question, I flew the EA-6B Prowler, the venerable electronic attack platform that is no longer around. She's been replaced by the E-18 Growler. And but I and to be honest, or to be more correct, I was technically a navigator. I was the what was called a naval flight officer. So I flew right seat or back seat and operated the weapon system on that platform. But we still it was tactical naval aviation, which was an absolute blast, and I really, really enjoyed it. But probably the one thing that I took from that, block of time in my life, which also happened to be right around 10 years, was discipline. And not only discipline, I would also say team-based sort of a mindset, a team-based mentality is that, you can't do life, you can't really succeed in anything, in my opinion, without a team. A team to bring you up, a team to encourage you, a team to strengthen you, and a team to sort of increase your success. And so I would say those would be the two biggest things that I learned as an aviator was teamwork and discipline.
A couple interesting lessons are kind of popping out to me here, Hal, that one of them is, I remember I had a track coach. You think about track and field, seems like a very individual sport, right? This particular track coach, it was very much a team thing to him. Like we showed up at the track where most kids were kind of wandering in, going over to their event. Like he had us come in, we were all dressed in uniform. We ran around the track. We did like the whole warm up thing together, which you don't normally see track teams do. It was interesting. I think we performed at a really high level in part because we had some great athletes, but I think it also changed the way that we showed up. It changed the mindset of our competitors, right? Like who is this group? And I think anytime you take maybe an individual sport, call it real estate, and you begin to think of it as a team sport, of like, it seems like I'm solo, but I'm really not. I've got a title partner. I've got a lender. I've got a cooperating agent. I've got the client. I've got, the cooperating client, on the other side. I've got, maybe a transaction coordinator, a principal broker. You start to realize like this is not an individual sport,
Absolutely.
right? We feed off each other.
Yeah.
And the more that we start to really see the fact that, hey, I need the very best teammates and I need to lift them up and I need to be sure that they're able to perform at their highest level and not be a ball hog or an egomaniac, right? I think these lessons are standing out to me that like, this isn't an individual sport. It's very much a team sport. You're right. Love that.
Yeah. And, beyond just the team members within a transaction, like for me in finding success, I also feel just the way that you and I connected is I think it's important for agents to sort of be resourceful, especially for those that perhaps are in a second career, third career kind of situation where, they've got a fairly large body of experience to draw from. That, kind of the mechanics of sales is sort of like second nature. Obviously, yeah, there is going to be that piece of especially, for me as a newer agent, I rely heavily on my principal broker or my broker in charge for sort of guiding me, navigating me through sort of the paperwork and pieces in that. But beyond that, as far as like mindset, as far as accountability, as far as sort of expanding your mind, I think that is sort of, for me, where I think it's valuable to realize that you do need sort of a iron sharpening iron. You need other people in your lives that are going to be operating at the level that you want to be operating at, and you sort of do what you can to get close to them and emulate them whenever possible.
That's a great point. I think we live in a really unique era, right? Where there's all kinds of noise and all kinds of interesting challenges that previous generations haven't had to experience. I will say that I would not trade it for everything or for anything because of the access that I can get to the people whose lives I want to emulate, right?
Sure.
Think about just through social media, through podcasts, the things that we can learn, the people that we can, again, that normally would have that would have been out of reach for the common professional, that we can now literally have them in our car, right?
That's
Their
wonderful.
voice in our car.
Yeah.
I mean, just this morning, I spent time with some greats, right? People that aren't even alive anymore, right? That are just some of the greats.
Me too.
And it's you're right. When you start to even expand your team to think about how can my team help me to grow, right? I've got Tony Robbins in one ear. I've got Jim Rohn in the other. I've got, like these great, brilliant people who have literally changed the psychology of millions and millions of people as my individual coach, right? Helping me today show up differently, show up bigger for the people that I'm serving. That's a great point. You can really, your team even expands to those that you recruit into your board of directors, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. A board of directors, a mastermind. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great way of thinking about it. So, that's a big lesson and a hugely important part. Hugely, sorry, not even the right word there, but a very large part of who I am is my relationships with my mastermind or my board of directors. They may not even know it, that they're on that that proverbial board of directors, but yet they do. And so, that's a big thing. But yeah, discipline and teamwork. Those are the two biggies that I took away from my military experience.
I have to point out, from the book, Think and Grow Rich, I think Napoleon Hill actually talks about having this mastermind of people that, right, many of them aren't living. Like, what would they say? If they were here advising me, what's the best advice they'd give to me? It reminds me of that. Yeah. Let's move to your role in corporate sales, getting medical device at a really high level. You learn sales and sales training and how to create a client experience, maybe how to get access to key decision makers that I would say would be very beneficial to for real estate agents that want to come in and really build a strategic business. Talk to us about some of the lessons that you've pulled from that experience you think would benefit anybody listening here today.
Yeah, so my role was I was with a company called Medline Industries, and what we did were supplies. That was our big thing. And so, for example, every single operating procedure in a hospital has to have like a specific set of supplies for that procedure. And I had, and was sort of my role, and there's hundreds of people that do this job for my company around the country. But my role was sort of to act as the quarterback and sort of bring in all of the appropriate people to sort of accomplish that task. And it's a gargantuan task when you're talking about the levels that we sort of delivered on. And for me, my role, when I first, stepped in and first got in the seat, in Hawaii, we didn't have any customers to speak of that were sort of at that level that I wanted to operate at. And so sort of the first thing that I did was I wrote down what I wanted. And I wrote down that, I wanted to have this specific customer with this specific product category, and I wanted to have it by this date. And that was like the first thing. I know it sounds like so basic and so like, almost mindless, but that was what I did. And then I sort of shaped my activities to do just that. And it was in that, role. I mean, my after at the end of my 10 years with Medline, I had, relationships and still do with C-suite level folks at $1 billion IDN here in Hawaii. And I can pick up the phone and have those relationships, but that didn't happen instantly. It took work day in, day out, constantly focusing on the basics. But I really began with the end in mind. And it was an amazing thing to be a part of, because when I started at that, in 2011 with Medline, I mean, we were nothing. We were in Hawaii. We were really a nobody. We weren't even we used to joke we couldn't even get thrown out of a hospital because nobody really knew who we were. But through the collective efforts of a lot of people in that organization, Medline is now the top privately held, actually the number one, not just privately held medical supplier in the country today. And but it came from me personally, just starting out with a goal. I knew what I wanted, and then I showed up. I focused on the basics. I focused on my call points, and I focused on building those relationships and just doing, again, kind of the discipline and teamwork to show up at work every day and do what I need to do to achieve that end. And so, I do actually have some sales experience from college where I actually learned how to actually sell, and also was a pharma rep, believe it or not, before my days in the military. But so, it's more than just showing up. Obviously, you do have to spend the time on the skills. And as a real estate agent, one of the things that I know for me as a skill is I have to focus on sort of my scripts, my dialogues, my things that I need to sort of focus on guiding the conversations. And, that's sort of how it looks in real estate today. I do the same thing. I write down my goals. I write them down every single day. And I focus on those. And then I also spend time sort of strengthening my craft, and that is through practicing my script work with other folks. And it's just the basics, man. I just focus on the basics and good things happen, really.
It is really interesting how there's so much overlap, right? When it comes to success in any industry, in particular sales-based industries, is that you go to battle with your mind day in and day out, right? Because not everybody's gonna want to be in business with you. Not everyone's gonna jump to help you grow your business. You're in charge. You're the one who's gonna have to get it done. And I feel that when people do what you just described right there, it's a winning recipe regardless of what you're selling. If you can get up every day and, well, first and foremost, identify what is the goal? What am I going to accomplish? And get up every day and write that goal, then practice, and then go to work and have that practice and that work be focused on the goal incessantly, you'll win. There's just so few people that get up and do that day in and day out that it won't take long before you're ahead above most. Because again, many come into the industry because their previous industry didn't work out, and this looks like easier money, right? They see the commission checks. They don't realize the internal and the external battle that it is to win at this space. And so I'm so appreciative of you just simplifying it down, right? It's not complicated. It's not easy because we're all, again, battling ourselves mostly and a competitive market secondly. But if you can nail those things, for everybody listening to this, if you could nail those things, create a very clear goal, write it down, get up every day and rewrite it, then practice and then go to work, right? And putting that practice into action, having real estate conversations, right? You win, right? I mean, am I oversimplifying it here, Hal?
I'm a very simple man, and that's why I like to make things as simple as possible. And I don't think you're oversimplifying at all. So, yeah, and you're right. It is a complex industry, and there's a lot more to it. There's a lot behind it. I mean, anyone that's in the business knows there's a really lot to this business. But once you're in that zone, in that moment, in the space, kind of from a mindset standpoint, and then also systems is another very important piece that I've sort of brought over, and I systemize and maximize every efficiency that I can, so that I can keep it as simple as possible. That's another big one for me, is systemizing and maximizing my efficiencies.
Mm-hmm. So. And again, that goes back to what you taught us before, right? This is a team sport. Mm-hmm. Like, get the right people on the team, right? Your partners in the industry, right? Like industry partners, the right teammates to help you show up where you don't have the deep understanding. And I love it, man. It's great stuff. And I'm sure for those out there that are in the trenches right now, you might be saying like, dude, that's totally oversimplified. and we might say you're totally overcomplicating it, right? Now, again, I'm gonna get some pushback on that, no doubt, right? But I do think that when you have a choice to make it complicated or simple, like Hal's saying, choose simple, and the chance of you being able to shine are going to go up, right? They're just going to go up.
Yeah.
Any last bit of advice, Hal, that you'd share that really comes from your experience, again, having succeeded both in the military as well as in the private sector, anything else like that would really be helpful, you think?
Well, no, absolutely. I just say that because I know there's a lot of people like myself in the world right now that are sort of at this moment where they are considering, changing their lives. And I know a lot of them, specifically in the corporate world. I specifically do. So anyway, I can just say that if you apply the basics, if you do what has always made you successful, you can bring that into this industry and you can do very good for yourself. Operate in faith, don't operate in fear, and set your goals, write them down, get up every day, do the work, and it will happen. And I know I've had so many conversations with guys over the last several months that from my old industry that are just like, dude, you're like completely out. And a lot of people have been like congratulatory. A lot of people were shocked. Most people are very sincerely happy for me. And I have had multiple conversations of people that are, share an element of envy. And I just say to those people that if you've always thought that you could do it on your own, that you've wanted to sort of step out and do it on your own, I say operate in faith, don't operate in fear. If you apply the basics, if you do the work, the rewards will come without a doubt. And that's probably my biggest advice to that person that's just like I was, a year ago.
Yeah, and I think a key indicator there, because I've got some great mentors in the real estate industry, and they're like, hey, it's cray right now. Like, don't think that you're going to like leave your day job and it's going to be smooth sailing. Like, get ready for battle. But anytime that you apply these principles, right? Like, the reality is that person was speaking to people who either haven't had success in something else because they weren't willing to pay the price, and or they're coming in looking for easy money. Those people need to stay, right? But for those that can say, look, I've been successful, I know what it takes, and I'm willing to work hard without an immediate, big win, then I agree. I've seen countless people come in and succeed at a high level having that mentality, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, great stuff, man. Let's go to the final signature question of the show, Hal, which is this. You're a big thinker. You've proven that in multiple areas of your life. What is it that Hal does to continue to grow himself, to continue to be a big thinker, expanding your personal possibilities? Yeah.
So that's a great question. And as I mentioned, that's really, that concept is what drew me to your podcast. I read a book in college called The Magic of Thinking Big. And, it's just, it really has has changed my mind. There was a great businessman that said, if you have to think, you might as well think big anyway. And so what I do in my personal daily life is I literally, I take, and I've just started doing this in the last 3 to 4 months. One of my business coaches that I follow, his name is Perry Marshall. Just an amazing individual. I do recommend him, aside from the Justin Stoddard Think Bigger world. But Perry, sort of got me onto this thing of Renaissance thinking. And, as you alluded to earlier in our talk here, there are so many distractions. So, every single one of us has got this little black rectangle in our pocket, buzzing, beeping, bopping, booping, constantly sending us and trying to get our attention. And our physiological composition naturally receives that dopamine hit every time we see something. But and you want to look and engage and interact and see what it is. But you've got to sort of take that moment and push that down, or take the time systematically, purposefully to improve your efficiencies. You've got to push that down. And one of the ways that I do that, which sort of helps me as a leader, as a thinker, as a self-employed individual, is that I do Renaissance time. And so every morning I spend, without fail, well, I shouldn't say without fail, I don't always do it, but most every day I am doing an hour of writing out my gratitudes. I write what I'm thankful for. I write out my goals, and then I spend about an entire page just writing, okay, how can I accomplish these goals? What is it that I'm doing today that is going to help me accomplish these goals that I want to have, by 2030, by 2040. And by doing that, and I do it in the absence of my phone, because I've got ADHD, like most any successful individual, I would imagine. You have a thought and you think, okay, let me go do it. And it's so easy when that phone is within reach, at least for me, maybe not for you or others, but if that phone is in reach, instantly I'm going to pick it up. So I set my phone. The way I do it for me is I set it in my desk and I go out on my lanai and I close the door. I'm sitting outside. It's nice. It's quiet. It's outside. And I spend time with my thoughts, writing out what I want to do, writing out my long-term plan, especially what I'm thankful for. That's another big one, I think, is just sort of repetitively, encouraging yourself and reminding yourself of what things you're thankful for. And it's kind of through that sort of my mind grows, and I'll have ideas and I'll have notions and I'll write those down, and then I'll go out and execute them later in the day. And so that's what I do to think bigger.
I love it. I think we function best when we're creating. I think when people are most unhappy, and I've really had to watch this with my kids as we've been in kind of a different learning environment now, right? Where they're sitting in front of devices more often than they used to be, that when they consume all day long and don't interact and don't connect and don't create, they're not happy. I've seen this.
Yes.
And I think for anybody out there that is feeling stuck when it comes to your own level of happiness, your own level of productivity, what Hal just shared with us right there is a key, is go create your goals and then create them in real life, right? I think there's beauty in that, happy, not being productive, et cetera, et cetera. So I appreciate your thoughts, Hal. Such a pleasure to spend some time with you again. For any of those that have any interest in Hawaii real estate, talk to Hal. This guy is fantastic. Again, he'll take care of you at the highest levels. He's got a podcast, right? The Hawaii Real Estate Roundup podcast. If you're thinking about short-term properties, some sort of vacation rental, talk to Hal. He's a guy who you can definitely bounce some ideas off, who you can get some expert counsel from, and obviously he can help serve you as you're looking to potentially make that step to the paradise island out there. So appreciate it, Hal. Such a pleasure. Thanks for your time, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin. It's a pleasure.
You bet. And everybody listening here today, my final request are these 3 simple words, and they are go think bigger. Hal, thanks for helping us do that today, my friend.
Absolutely.